Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Titan Investor Webinar. I'm Jane Morgan, the Investor and Media Relations Manager, and today I'm joined by Titan CEO, Melanie Leighton. Good morning, Melanie.
Hi, Jane. It's great to be here.
Now, today's webinar will be a company presentation followed by a Q&A session. So to ask a question throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. But Mel, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Jane. I guess first and foremost, I'm assuming everyone's seen the news yesterday, and that's why we're all here. Very exciting and a massive tick of endorsement for us, the investment from Hancock subsidiary company Hanrine into our Linderos copper project in Ecuador. So clearly they see the value in that project, and they clearly see the opportunity in Ecuador as well. So we're really pleased to have partnered with them for our Linderos Copper Project. But I think outside of that, Linderos is one of 3 large copper projects that we have in Ecuador. So I think there's great opportunity, for us to continue developing them and advancing discussions with potential strategic partners there as well. So this represents, I would suggest, the first of more partnerships and project level investments to come for us. So I guess starting from the top, Titan, our projects are in southern Ecuador. We have 4 large-scale copper gold projects. They're in the highly prospective Andean copper belt. It's actually our Dynasty project is our most advanced project. We've got 3 million ounces of gold, 22 million ounces of silver established in JORC compliant resources of that project. And we do believe there is significant potential to rapidly grow that resource through new discovery at that project. And so that's the gold project. And then outside of that, the copper project's very exciting potential for tier 1 copper porphyry discoveries there. So now that we have that partnership with Hancock or Hanrine at the Linderos project, that funding is taken care of to the point of a decision to mine, and we can really focus our efforts particularly on Dynasty and our spend there, and continuing advancing those discussions with strategic partners for the other projects. Little bit more detail on the investment itself by Hancock's subsidiary Hanrine. It is in a staged earning agreement. So there's an initial upfront cash component of $2 million to earn the initial 5% of the project, followed by 10,000 meters of drilling or an additional expenditure of $8 million US, and that will get them up to 30% earning of the project, followed by an additional 15,000 meters of drilling or an additional expenditure of $12 million. And this will get them to the 51% majority ownership of the project, after which they will complete all studies and work streams required to get to the point of a decision to mine, or at a minimum of $120 million expenditure, they can earn up to 80% of the project. And at that point, we can choose to contribute pro rata to our investment, or we can elect to dilute. If we dilute below 10% or to 10%, then we assume a 2.7% NSR across the project. So I think regardless, even a minority held interest in the project for us still does provide us with really good exposure to any potential upside at the project. So I think a great outcome for the company and for our shareholders, meaning that we're not having to fund this project, but we still retain really good exposure to any potential upside. And I guess in touching on the, the implied value of this investment, particularly the initial 5% the initial $2 million for 5%, roughly represents $40 million US on a 100% basis for that project, or circa 60 million Australian dollars, which I guess is equivalent to, or a little bit higher, in fact, than our market cap at the time of doing this deal. So it does provide a really good look-through value of what the project value is, and then clearly an uplift in our market valuation also. So yeah, great to have Hanrine with the balance sheet and the capability in country to continue progressing the Linderos Copper Project. They do have a team established in country. They have been, I think, probably operating and active in Ecuador for at least 6 to 8 years. So they're no stranger to what needs to be done in Ecuador and the way, the business is done there. And so we're very confident to be progressing, at a rapid rate with all of these work streams and this agreement to be consummated. So, and lastly, it is a really strong endorsement for, Titan's strategy. And we've kind of weathered the storm the last few years. Junior explorers have not seen a lot of love, particularly with the gold and copper stocks. And we've stayed true to our knitting, and we've continued to advance those projects with probably little merit given and or shown in our share price to this point. So I think to get that endorsement from Hancock and the projects and our strategy and the work that our team has been doing there, I think is really positive for us, and moving forward provides a great foundation. So I guess talking about next steps and our broader projects and our strategy there, Dynasty being our most advanced asset is, what the bulk of our focus has been on, and the bulk of our expenditure. So we're currently expanding exploration programs across the Dynasty project. It's a 9-kilometre epithermal gold corridor. The existing resources probably sit on about 5 kilometres of that corridor. So there's effectively 4 kilometres that remains to be properly tested in terms of an exploration and a resource growth sense. So we're certainly targeting that with our exploration, and we are targeting a resource update later this quarter, which will be a combination of resource growth and also some resource conversion in terms of upgrade. I would like to see some of our inferred being upgraded to indicated through, the good exploration work and the good geological understanding that we've continued to develop at that project. Outside of that, we've entered into some de-risking, work streams with a high-level pre-scoping study and some preliminary metallurgical test work that's underway at the moment. And I'd like to think those results will be out in the third quarter. And that'll give us a really good understanding about the opportunities of the project, what levers we've got to pull there, and where we really need to focus that resource growth, those resource growth efforts and those drilling programs. So then, outside of that, Linderos, with the deal now being done in terms of the indicative terms signed, it is about getting that definitive agreement completed, which I think will be done in the coming few weeks, and then getting on the ground at the project with Hanrine and establishing, the work streams and the timeframes to get them started up. But I'd like to think that drilling will be commencing at Linderos most likely in early Q3 this year. And I guess important to note, we do have all environmental permits for exploration work programs in place, so we are ready to go in that regard. Zooming in on the projects and where they're located within Ecuador, like I said, they're down in the south. We're near the border of Peru, and we're surrounded by pedigree TSX listed companies. And as you can see at the bottom of this slide, there's a number of majors that are now invested in Ecuador and have been there, I would think, probably for the last 5 to 10 years. They've been quite active in terms of their investment into Ecuador. And most recently, Hanrine's investment into our Linderos project is a big investment in itself. But then outside of that, Hancock, through their subsidiary Hanrine, also reached a commercial agreement with Ecuador's ANAMI, which is the government-run sort of mining organization in Ecuador, to invest another US $120 million in a large package of land to undertake exploration there. So I won't go through all of those investments on the right of the slide there, but as you can see, significant interest from the majors moving into Ecuador and seeing that as the real opportunity to fill the future sort of copper supply shortage that is looming. A little bit more about Ecuador as a jurisdiction. It is emerging, and that's why it does represent an opportunity. It is immature in an exploration and mining sense, but the government are particularly supportive of responsible mining going forward. At this point in time, there are only 2 operating mines in Ecuador. There's the Lundin Fruta del Norte gold operation, which has been in operation probably for about 2 to 3 years, and the Mirador copper mine as well. So they currently represent about 1 to 2% GDP for Ecuador, and the government is targeting 10 to 12% for the mining to be contributing to their GDP in the coming sort of 15 years or so. So that certainly means that they will be supporting and fast tracking those projects to get to the point of mining, because they really do see mining as a big part of their economic revitalization and a big lever for that. And then I guess on the right of this slide, what I'm showing here again is, the government is really committed to supporting the foreign investment into Ecuador and giving a level of certainty and comfort to those, large companies that are making substantial investments into Ecuador. Most recently, I think I've got the wrong number here, but SolGold, I believe, have entered into a $3.2 billion agreement with the Ecuadorian government in terms of a protection agreement for exploitation. And there's also a number of exploration investment investment protection agreements that have been entered into. So certainly, you know, a very favorable environment and government within Ecuador, and we're certainly enjoying the benefits of that as well. Zooming in a little bit further to the projects, and just a little bit on Ecuador itself, which I think I was quite surprised when I first visited Ecuador in early last year when I joined Titan as the CEO. It's actually really rich in infrastructure. There's excellent roads, highways. The Pan American Highway runs alongside our Dynasty project. Our projects themselves are relatively low elevation, ranging from sort of 600 meters in the valley to 1,200 meters at the crest of the hill. So average elevation roughly about 1,000 meters at our project. So, you know, very good access, good year-round exploration, and certainly workforce ready with some really highly skilled labour living in the neighbouring towns and cities. So, you know, no obstacles in that regard. And I guess to point out as well, our projects being in the south of Ecuador, no indigenous communities and no environmentally sensitive areas. So largely just small scale farming and small communities and families living in the area that we've seen have been largely supportive of exploration and mining going forward. So just touching on the projects on the right, as I've mentioned, 4 large-scale 100% held projects. Linderos is the only project that we've so far entered into any project-level joint venture deal on. You know, they sit rimming the Tangula batholith, which is a Cretaceous batholith implicated in the, I guess, apophyses of porphyry mineralization and then subsequent epithermal gold mineralization that we see across all of our projects. So yeah, large land holdings, no encumbrances, full steam ahead for us with exploration across all of our projects. Going a little bit further into the copper projects themselves, and this is a relatively new slide that I've added, but I think it's particularly topical considering, you know, I watched the Tribeca presentation at the Singapore Forward Facing Commodities Conference in March, and you know, the onset of AI and the requirement for copper to fill, you know, those chips required for that is going to send, you know, growth for a demand for copper exponentially higher. The problem being, as you can see, for the last probably 10 years, there's been a lack of investment and a lack of discovery of copper, you know, throughout the world and even in South America itself. So what I show on the right here is currently discovered and defined copper porphyry deposits. And as you can see, there's a lot in Chile and a lot in Peru. There's certainly some in Colombia. Ecuador is like a blank canvas, and that really is just due to a lack of exploration. And I think, as I was quoted in a newspaper article yesterday, I mean, politically, Ecuador was a bit of a basket case probably until about 20 years ago. So, you know, the government are doing their best to turn that around and make Ecuador, you know, to fill in these gaps, basically. And a study done by USGS has, I guess, predicted copper deposits that are yet to be discovered. Everything in green here has got a high probability of discovery of further copper deposits. And as you can see, Ecuador certainly sits within that green high probability expected value. And the prediction is that there's roughly 20, you know, tier 1 copper porphyry deposits that are yet to be discovered in Ecuador. So I think it's a great place for us to have these projects and for us to be exploring. Zooming in on the Linderos Copper Project, which is where we've just done the deal with Hanrine. It is a large project. I'd say it's probably about 12 kilometres wide by about 10 kilometres north-south. There is evidence for porphyry copper systems, epithermal gold systems, and we've really only focused our work to date on the Copper Ridge, oh, sorry, it's not working properly, my pointer, the Copper Ridge and the Meseta prospects here. And the rest of the project really requires further work, but the geochemistry and the aeromagnetic surveys, the regional foundation data sets tell us that there is the potential for multiple porphyry intrusions across our project. Zooming into the Copper Ridge project, which is which is where most of the work has been done. We completed some drilling there back in late in 2022. As you can see on the image on the right here, the drill traces are coloured by copper. They define probably a diameter of about 800 metres to 1 kilometre wide porphyry footprint, and the better mineralisation that we intersected was 308 metres, grading 0.4% copper equivalent. Within that, there was some higher grade intersections of up to 0.5, 0.6% copper equivalent. So certainly potential there, we think, to define higher grade porphyry intrusive phases within the Linderos or the Copper Ridge prospect. And also, importantly, we conducted an IP geophysical survey in July last year, which actually shows that the porphyry alteration footprint is more like 2 kilometres in diameter. And so what we see in this sort of 800 metres to 1 kilometre is really just sort of the tip of the surface of what the potential is. Meseta is an epithermal gold prospect, probably similar to what we see at our Dynasty Gold project. Again, we got some really quite good high-grade gold results there. But I think for us, you know, the main play at this project really is the copper porphyry. And we do believe that the porphyry is actually just sitting underneath this gold prospect as well. And that's what we see with this chargeability, which seems to be mapping the pyrite or the phyllic alteration halo of the porphyry. So, you know, good confidence there. Just showing a cross section through the porphyry itself, the drilling that I noted here, this 308 metres at 0.4% copper equivalent. As you can see, the end of hole actually ended in copper mineralisation. So, and 6 of 8 of our holes actually did end in copper porphyry mineralisation. So it's certainly good potential both laterally and at depth to extend that copper porphyry. And I guess I like to point out that when we get to down about this level here, about 600 or 700 metres vertical, that's actually where SolGold's Cascabel or Alpala project, actually their better tenor mineralisation commences. So we haven't even begun to test that portion of the prospect here. So yeah, certainly very encouraging and a lot of potential growth there. And I believe obviously that's what Hanrine saw in this project. Moving on to our next project, Copper Duke is also a large-scale copper porphyry project. We have multiple data sets that indicate that it's a 7-kilometre long porphyry system. We have an alteration footprint that's highlighted by, you know, aeromagnetics, soil geochemistry, mapping, and we've also, we now have trenching that has confirmed that it is true porphyry mineralisation with some quite intense veining associated with it. And geochemistry, which has been analysed by Dr. Scott Halley, has indicated that it is the porphyry itself is derived from the same magma type as which hosts all of the global tier 1 porphyry systems. And recent age dating has also told us that the mineralisation is Paleocene, which is the same age as the megaporphyry systems which are in Peru. So a lot of hallmarks of this project that tell us that it really could be a very large porphyry system here. And we've collected all of the foundation data sets and we've sort of honed in on the area where we want to be. And again, we're quite advanced with discussions with strategic partners for this project. But with only 4 drill holes ever completed at this project, I think it represents, again, a blank canvas and a real opportunity to find, you know, a monster copper porphyry deposit here. I'll just touch briefly on our gold projects. I think everyone's probably familiar with the gold price and the way it's going. I guess of note to point out, with our current resource base of about 3 million ounces of gold, that equates to about $10 an ounce US as an implied value. So certainly a large disconnect from the current, you know, gold price, which is up around 2,400 US and seems to be rising. So I think, you know, like I said, junior explorers haven't had a lot of love of late. Particularly the last 18 months, 2 years has been pretty tough. And I think we're going to start to see a really good environment. And those juniors that are holding quality projects like what we are, you know, I'd like to think they'll get the support and we will get the support to move forward with Dynasty, which is a development-ready gold project. Just touch a little bit more on the resource itself, which we published ourselves in July last year, culmination of a large body of work. 66,000 metres of diamond core has gone into this. There's a little over 50% of the resource sits within the top 200 metres. The balance sits within about 400 metres from surface, and mineralisation does extend from surface. The bulk of the mineralisation sits down here at the Cerro Verde prospect. We've got close to 2 million ounces of gold down there. Iguana also hosts a considerable amount of ounces as well. Papayal and Trapachillo in the northeastern part of the project, relatively low tons and ounces, but actually quite high grades there. So Trapachillo is grading 3.8 grams per ton gold and a significant credit of silver of almost 40 grams per ton. Papayal again, 4.5 grams per ton gold and 51 grams silver. So really high grade parts of the project, but they've actually seen really limited levels of exploration. So only about 5,000 meters of drilling has been done in the northeastern portion of the project. So that's a real focus for our geologists at the moment. They're on the ground expanding that, I guess, epithermal footprint through mapping and soil geochemistry, and we're getting some really good targets that require follow-up drilling. And the intent there is to be back drilling at Dynasty early in the second half of this year. Serra Verde and Iguana itself, we've done some optimization studies, and it does look like a large open pit wants to open up on these areas. The cutoff grade looks to be about 0.5 grams per ton gold, and the pits want to extend down to about 400 meters below surface. So the bulk of that mineralization will come out in an open pit. And when we get to the Trapachillo, Papayal, northeastern parts of the project, there could be some small open pits there, followed by underground mining there. So a bit of optionality at the project in terms of the way that we want to cut it with the open pit and underground mining methods. Just touching on the communities and our CSR efforts, which go hand in hand with our exploration. It is about working in harmony with the community and the landholders. It is about engaging. It's about transparency. It's about providing employment opportunities. And certainly, I think Titan has done a really good job of that. Since acquiring the projects back in 2020, I think there was probably about 5% land access at the project. Since then, we've gone to more than 60% access at the project. And in fact, if we wanted to enter into further access agreements, we could. There's only certain parts of the project that we find prospective at this point in time that we're entering into agreements to explore. But I guess really importantly, these parts of the project here have never previously been explored, not by us or any previous explorers. So they do represent a real opportunity to grow the gold mineralization at the Dynasty project. And this package of land here has only recently been opened up in February this year. And there's a large package of land here. It sort of runs in a V shape. And particularly this part of the project here, never been explored, and it is a real opportunity to grow the Dynasty resource, and certainly that's what we're targeting. Just to sum up, I guess, in terms of what to expect, it really, for us, our spend and our efforts really are about Dynasty and getting that fast tracked, because to make the most of this gold pricing environment, I think is important, and I think we're very close with the resource asset base that we do have, but I think that we can demonstrate that the 3 million ounces through our exploration and some really targeted drilling could become 4 to 5 million ounces quite easily, and then that would probably feed into the feasibility studies that we would like to commence. So yeah, the resource update's being targeted later this quarter, both growth and upgrade in terms of classification. I think the MET test work will be a significant de-risking for the project, as will, I think the pre-scoping study will provide us, with an idea of what the levers are and where we really need to focus our efforts. And then, also we've got the copper projects that are coming through the pipeline. So we're not really spending a lot of money at those projects. In fact, we're not spending any money at the Linderos project, but some really good news flow and results to come from those projects, I believe. And that sums up my presentation. I think we open it up to questions now.
Let's jump into them. So when does the company expect to sign the formal joint venture term sheet?
Yeah, look, we're working on that at the moment with Hancock's lawyers here in Western Australia, because the terms are governed by West Australian law. So I think it'll just be a few weeks until that's done. We spent quite a bit of time getting the indicative terms right. So hopefully the final binding agreement should be fairly straightforward.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Mel. And this one's come through a few times, actually. So how does Hanrine's investment work with the company's overall funding strategy? So that is, will there be a need for further share placements down the track?
Yeah, well, I think the upfront cash component, the US $2 million, which is probably circa Australian $3 million, is a great outcome for us. And we can certainly use that funding to put towards any of our projects. But, you know, as indicated, Dynasty would be getting the bulk of that funding. So yeah, I think it puts us in a really good place with our current cash balance and that cash coming in. So no, I don't see the need for any placements anytime soon.
Wonderful. You just answered the next question. So let me move on. So from your talks with Hanrine, what are they looking for in South America? And have they shown any interest in investing in any of Titan's other projects?
Well, I think you can see from the news that they've been very active in South America. I think Ecuador, definitely they're after the copper. Other parts of South America, it looks like rare earths and other basically critical metals of any type. I think, you know, Mrs. Reinhardt's clearly got her eyes on the future and being a part of that. So it's great that she's been a first mover in Ecuador and is really, I guess, not stamping her authority, that doesn't sound right, but you know, she's really bullish about copper in Ecuador, so we're really pleased to be partnering with her on that.
Thanks, Mel. Just one on market cap. So given Titan's market cap remains under the 60 mil post this deal, do you think that we're being valued on the Dynasty resource just alone?
Look, I think yes. I think that there's been very little value for our copper projects, you know, ascribed to our current market cap. So yeah, I would like to think that this deal and the implied kind of look-through value of, you know, at least one of our copper projects. Yeah, I think that there was a Canaccord note that came out yesterday that sort of shows that probably the target price is quite a bit higher than our current share price for sure.
I know you touched on this in your presentation, but can you provide a bit of an update on the current situation in Ecuador and whether this is having any impact on Titan's activities in country or within the communities around the project area?
Yeah, I think that you know, Ecuador has had a bit of a bad rap in the news lately. There certainly has been a little bit of social unrest, and there has been, I guess, some things that haven't been ideal for the country. But what the president, who the recently elected president, has done is he's really got on the front foot, and he's been very proactive and very vocal about stamping out any of that, you know, illegal mining or potential sort of drug trafficking that has been an issue and dogged sort of Ecuador in the past. So he's taking a very active, strong stance on that. He is certainly involved the military, and we are actually seeing a really fantastic level of support for our projects. And we actually, where we are in the south of Ecuador, it's actually a really quiet place, and we actually haven't seen any issues at our projects, and it's been business as usual for us. So certainly no obstacles there, and the government and the local authorities have been really supportive.
Thanks for that, Mel. Another one just popped up. So you cited S&P's study about AI's potential to drive copper discoveries. Does Hanrine have copper capabilities which you utilize? And exactly what is Hanrine's expertise in country or with copper exploration?
Well, we're just learning about Hanrine and their copper expertise. I do know that they have been in Ecuador for several years exploring. They have the Buenos Aires project in the north of Ecuador, which is quite close to SolGold's Cascabel project. So clearly they have got some expertise and some capability in country. And their access to technical experts, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that we've got some really good technical experts, and I'm sure that it would be a collaborative effort between ourselves and Hancock or Hanrine to get the best result for both parties.
Thanks for that, Mel. Changing pace a bit here. So given the increasing interest in silver, is there scope to uncover further silver resources to complement the 22 million ounce silver resource at Dynasty?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point that you make, actually, because I was on a call with you know, someone yesterday, and they sort of pointed out that we had such a massive silver resource and that we'd never really been, I guess, promoting that, and there is such little exposure for, you know, silver on the ASX. So no, you're right. I think there's a huge scope for us to grow that silver resource, particularly in that northeastern part of the project, which is very silver rich. So yeah, I mean, it tends to go hand in hand with the gold at the project. They're very closely related. So any additional gold that we add will also be adding silver also.
Thank you, Mel. Just mindful of time. I think just to wrap things up, I just want to reiterate what shareholders should be looking forward to from a news flow perspective over the next sort of 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I think, well, initially it's about Dynasty. It's about the exploration targets and resource growth targets that we're defining at the project right now. So I'd like to think that we'll have some results, coming through over the next 2 months, sort of updates on exploration activities. And then beyond that, getting into drilling at Dynasty as well. So there'll certainly be drilling results come through in the second half of this year. The resource update is to be looked forward to probably in about 2 months' time, 6 weeks, 8 weeks' time. And then outside of that, the pre-scoping and the metallurgy studies as well at Dynasty. And then obviously Linderos, once we get on the ground and start the drilling there, I'm sure there'll be a stream of results to come through for Linderos in the sort of Q3 this year, I imagine.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that today, Mel, and thank you all for joining us for the Titan Investor webinar. If we've missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But we look forward to giving you further updates in the near future.
Great. Thank you.